Welcome 7th through 8th grade. Today's topic, we are going to workshop how to organize the information and create an outline to begin writing your paper. Now, we're not quite at the point where we're going to write our paper, but we're getting close. And I know this is a long process, so I'm going to try to walk you through and pretend like we're doing it together today. So, I also want to say that the next topic I'm going to use as an example, I am pretending I've already researched this, so I am totally making up statistics and quotations. But in your case, in a real scenario, these are the pieces of information you have already gathered. They're in your notes. Your note cards already have quotations, summaries in them, if you've been keeping up and you've been doing your assignments. So for your topic, you already have this information. I'm just making this up, so please don't take anything I say as real. Although it could be real, it will be very plausible. I am making this up for sake of illustration. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through as if I've been writing this paper so far. So I have brainstormed, and I chose the topic, the general topic of video games. After brainstorming, which was my very first stop in this research and writing project, I brainstormed quite a bit about, after all my reading and my research, I decided that I was going to zoom in on the effects of video games. And even more so, there was a lot of research I came across that said that, talked about the effects on the family, on culture, on the classroom. But I am focusing on the player, the effects on the player. So I'm getting closer to my topic. So I came to my research with an open mind, and I saw that there were negative effects and there were positive effects. And as I gathered all my research, I noticed that there was a surprising amount of positive effects. That was so surprising that I decided this was going to be the topic I wanted to write on. And so I started to take that angle and get closer to my thesis. As I gathered more information, I was taking notes, I was reading articles, and I started to set aside any information on the negative effects. Not that it wasn't useful, it was useful, but it helped me zoom in even more. So I started to find things like this. Now, again, I'm making this up, but I came across an article about nursing homes using VR and technology like the Wii to get their residents some safe exercise. Very interesting. It also allowed the employees in this particular article to interact with their patients, especially their dementia patients, in a fun, safe way. They could simulate bowling, for instance, which would be unsafe to take their patients to a bowling alley because it would just be too precarious, too slippery, too dangerous to take a group like that, people who need walkers and support, to a bowling alley and actually pick up a heavy bowling ball and try to approach the alley and risk slipping and falling on their face and breaking a hip. Instead, they set up the lunchroom and they hooked up a Wii, and it allowed them to stand up while holding onto their walkers and simulate bowling. It was great for lots of reasons. They noticed that it gave the residents something to look forward to. They started scheduling it not just weekly, but they started making it a daily option. They noticed that some of the residents that had been really depressed, they were having mood improvements. It allowed for family to come in and join them, and it gave them some exercise. Okay, so that was one article. So I set that aside. I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I found another article about a situation where there were some active duty Army soldiers, and they were stationed in a really remote location, and they were really struggling with morale. And what they did is they purchased for the troop, they purchased several PlayStations, and they made sure they had strong internet access, and it allowed these men to connect with their family. Some of them had sons that they played with, brothers, cousins. So they were able to interact in that way and have conversations while they were playing. They also found that it simulated, they also used it to simulate some battles, some very realistic battles. And they were able to work on their responses and their critical thinking, their quick decision making, in a way that obviously wasn't dangerous. They weren't risking any lives. No one got injured because it was all a simulation. So that was a really interesting article about that. And then I came across another article that talked about the scenario where there was a student who had just moved to a new area, was having a hard time acclimating, but another student reached out online and invited him to a group play. And this was what this student needed, this very shy, reserved student needed to become acclimated. And he made friends through this. And it was very helpful because what made this student made it extra difficult is he was very shy, and his parents worked quite a bit. He was an only child, so he was at home by himself. But this provided a way for him to connect with friends and when he normally would have been at home alone by himself. Okay, so that's the information I gathered. So I started to look at my material, and I thought, this fits into several interesting categories. I've noticed that it can benefit the player physically. Well, I can't spell, can I? All right. And so I can cite the senior citizens' physical benefits. They were able to get exercise without risk of injury. I can cite the soldier simulation that allowed them to practice without risk of injury or death. So that was another physical benefit. And then another physical benefit was the hand-eye coordination practice, and the benefits there. And then let's say I kind of see this and I think, I need maybe some scientific background. So I go look at a science article on maybe the development of quick responses, quick hand-eye coordination. So I'm like, I can go looking for that because I'm sure it's there. All right. Then, so I have a physical bucket here. It benefits them physically. So then I look and I'm like, the other thing I noticed is it seems to benefit them socially, because in the seniors case, there's the example of being able to have a fun family gathering at their facility, because most of these patients couldn't leave because of their health. But the family could come and join. It also gave them a way to interact with their peers or their friends and the employees. So that's a really big thing there. And then I might use the student as an example and his friends. And then I would also obviously use the Army being able to connect with long distance family. So the fact that you can have long distance connection through video games. Then I look at the mental benefits, because I notice that the nursing home patients have improved moods because of family being able to visit, some fun things being able to participate in, to have good relationships with the employees, and even just the physical exercise, which is well known to boost moods and emotions. And then the morale boost in the troop that was stationed in a remote area, being able to connect with each other, to have some fun, to distract from this seriousness of their responsibilities, and just the opportunity to connect long distance with the people they love. And then with the student, there was a huge mental benefit, because being able to find connection with a group and be accepted in is a wonderful way to improve mental attitude. I guess you could say his attitude, his outlook. And you could also talk about the mental benefit of maybe critical thinking, and maybe I might go search for an article on improved academics. There might even be an article out there, maybe not. But again, I'm not going to make it up in real life. I'm making all this up, but you get my point. So I noticed there are 3 buckets that all of this falls into. So that helps me start to organize this into first of all, a thesis and an outline. So to create my thesis, as we always do, the best way to do that is to make sure that the subject of my paper is the subject of my thesis. So it would be video games, or even more specifically, I could say playing video games. And then I'm going to say benefits the player. That would be my thesis. And then my outline would be as follows. Playing video games benefits the player physically. Playing video games benefits the player mentally. And playing video games benefits the player socially. And then I would have enough here to begin writing my paper, because I would have organized my information. I would have narrowed it down to a thesis, and I would be ready to do that. Now, next week, we're going to talk about how to incorporate these examples, illustrations, anecdotes, statistics, interviews, etc., into your paper. How do you use that support to prove your thesis and your outline? And we'll have some demonstrations, and I'm going to keep using this as our example. So this would not be a good research topic for you because obviously I'm making it up. If you want to actually go research this and come up with your own outline, you're welcome to do that. But at this stage, hopefully you've already zoomed in on your own topic, your own thesis, and hopefully this will help you finalize your thesis and start to organize your material into an outline. So your homework this week, you need to turn in a finalized thesis. Let me just write homework on here. And I'm going to call it a rough outline, but I don't want it to look rough. This doesn't mean you make it look rough. It means we understand, we have a mutual understanding that this outline still might be fine-tuned, or you might fill it in a little bit more with A's and B's underneath it. But I do want a sharp thesis, a well-worded, strong thesis, and a rough outline. Rough, not meaning, again, that it looks rough or it's in any way simple and unfinished, but that we know that it might still be tweaked. Now, let me also point this out, and we've talked about this in other videos, but look how parallel these points are. We have playing video games remaining as our subject. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but notice that that provides a lot of very clear connection. It keeps you on track, and it's something I highly recommend. And I actually, in this case, keep the same verb because, again, it keeps me right on track with the point of my paper. The only thing that changes in this case is the category, physically, mentally, and socially. So this allows for me to write a very clear paper, to know exactly how I'm organizing my information. You can create a paper with this kind of pattern because as you become more advanced in your writing, you can deviate from this, but I prefer you to keep it as simple and clear and parallel as possible because it helps you stay on track. I've read many, many middle school and high school papers where the student goes totally off the rails when it comes to the subject and includes irrelevant information or mixes the buckets up and doesn't keep a clear distinction between them. And so we do talk about outlines in some of my other videos for the other classes, 5th through 6th grade in particular, if you want to go browsing there. But it's very helpful to keep clear where you are going, have a map, and to follow your map. Okay, so this is your homework. This will be a 30-point assignment, all right? 10 points for the thesis, 20 points for the outline. This is a big deal. You cannot write a paper without a good thesis and outline. This needs to be solidified this week. I look forward to reading it if you are my students, if you are doing this for your parents or another teacher. I hope you enjoy this. It's hard work to come to take all this information and condense it down. It has been said, and I cannot remember who said this quote, but it's something along the lines of, the mark of a true genius is someone who can take something complicated and make it simple. And that's really what we're doing here. We're taking all this information, we're boiling it down, and we're getting to the heart of what we're trying to say. So I hope you have a good week. I'll talk to you next week.